Welcome back, friends, to this rather unscripted, off-the-cuff discussion about the new edition of the Horus Heresy that's going to be releasing rather soon. I'm overall, I'm very, very excited for this, but I just wanted to share my thoughts, both good and bad, about what we've seen so far with this new edition. But just before we dive in, you can do all the usual YouTube stuff. It's down there, all the buttons. You can click it if you like. You don't have to, but it's there for your consideration. So let's start out with some good points. Let's start with some good points. So I quite like the fact that Games Workshop has slowly sort of released the new rules about how the game is going to be played. Gives us quite a lot of insight early on, so it means then we can start to get a better idea, better understanding of what it's going to be like. Now, I do like the fact that they are trying to simplify it, trying to streamline it as best they can, but also make it more narrative based, which I absolutely love. And I'm not a competitive player in any sense. For some reason, the dice gods, they don't tend to agree with me a lot of the time, so I don't tend to bother. I quite like the painting, the modelling side of things, and just have, as they say, like a beer and pretzel sort of game, and creating a story and a bit of a narrative that goes on throughout um, several battles, which I really, really enjoy. And the fact that they are focusing on more of a character, they've got more of a character focus on with this new edition, with the introduction of the newer, much more intuitive challenge system, sounds really, really, really cool. Now, kind of on the flip side of that, sort of as a bit of a negative point to this, is that it seems like that they have stripped away some rules to make it streamlined, but then they've added in more things to fill that void in a sense. It seems like it's going to take as long, or maybe even longer, with the challenge systems um, that they're going to be sort of implementing. So I think it's a bit of an odd thing that they're trading one thing for another, but yeah, I think that it's one of those things that we'll have to wait and see when the rules fully come out and we're able to play it and see how it flows, how it runs, and that sort of thing. Now I know that said they're going to start with the good stuff, but I think I'm just going to kind of pick a bit of a topic and give my thoughts of like the good points and the bad points. So moving on to the next point, is the fact that the game length is going to be up to 4 turns, which I really quite enjoy. I enjoy a sort of shorter, more kind of crunchier game than I would do if it kind of ran out onto onto like 5 or 6 turns. The reason why I quite like this is that the Star Wars Legion, the newer edition, a lot of people say, "Oh, it's 2.5 or whatever," but it's a new edition, and their game turns go on for 4 rounds, so it's quite nice. It makes you have to go up the board, get into the center objective, get to the objectives in your enemy's deployment zone, and kind of get going sooner rather than hanging back, spending a lot of time kind of slowly creeping up the board. So I quite like that with it being 4 turns, it makes you want to kind of get out and get straight into it and rolling dice, which is fantastic. I know that a lot of people don't like that sort of thing; they prefer the longer games, but it's an entire personal preference, really. I quite like the shorter games for another reason. When I run and sort of do battle reports, so with me and my friend that I tend to do the Horus Heresy battle reports with, we tend to pick just doing 4 turns, mainly because by that point it's already getting quite late in the evening and there's quite a bit to edit as well, just to try and get it at least around an hour and a half if I can. So having it baked in that it is only 4 turns is fantastic. I really quite like that. I don't tend to, well, I don't have any negatives on that sort of thing, just because it's personally, I quite like the shorter game turns. I know there's a lot of people out there that like the longer games, and it's entirely up to them. But I suppose if you're playing a more casual game, you can always say, hey, we can just tweak the rules a little bit, make it longer if you like. Or if you're playing and you've got like a whole day free to do so, you could probably get, a good few games in at the shorter 4-turn length game, which I think is quite fun. It's quite interesting. So moving on to the newer sort of stat lines with the willpower, for instance, that they did an article about, and it said when you're casting psychic powers, you're using the willpower rather than the leadership, which I think is actually pretty damn good. The fact that there is a separate stat line for doing more psychic shenanigans is quite handy. The fact that I'm actually currently starting up a Thousand Suns army, and when I was looking through the rules of second edition, they sound sort of good on paper, but I thought, well, it's going to be leadership based. This might not be as powerful as it's actually written out. But I haven't had a game of second edition with Thousand Suns, so if any of you that do have Thousand Suns and have ran them in second edition, what are your thoughts on them? Are they powerful? Are they not? It's a bit of a slow burnery army as I'm trying to finish up my salamanders in time for the third edition release, and I'm going to do a battle report on that. But whether I can get them finished in time is absolute mystery. I mean, I would have liked to have got more done, but with the mad heat waves we've been having in the UK and I work outside, and by the time I get back home, I'm not hugely in the mood for doing painting. I just want to sort of lounge around and do nothing as best I can, really. But with some of the new rules with the Legion bits and pieces that we've seen as well, I know that there was a leak that was dropped either today or yesterday that looked into the Liber Astartes books with the loyalists, and from I sort of had a bit of a glance at it, and from what I can see, it looks pretty good. It looks like they're sort of increasing the flavour of the legions and making them a little bit more cinematic in a way, and I quite like the what's it with the flame weapons. The fact that they're going to be routing weapons, which I think is absolutely brilliant. It's going to make the salamanders pretty damn strong. I mean, will it be balanced at the end of it? I mean, I kind of hope that it's not, because then it makes it more fun. Because if it's a bit of a problem I have seen with Warhammer 40k, is that it's so balanced that it just seems like it's more of there's less like flavor, there's less imagination. It's kind of a bit of a grey sludge, which is kind of why I haven't really played. I think I only played like a couple of games to 10th edition when it came out years back, and then they kept changing the rules and all that rubbish, and I just stopped playing and trying to customize. I love to customize my options, make it a little bit more personal, and with 40k they kind of stripped a lot of that away, which just sucks. But thankfully they are still keeping that with the Horus Heresy, with the new edition, with the loadouts and what you can sort of give your characters and like your sergeants and that sort of thing. And speaking of units and bits, I think that it's pretty good that they're moving some of them around a little bit, because I know that the elite section was very, very, very contested with loads of different options that you could pick from. And the fact that they've moved the dreadnoughts, the Contemptor Dreads, out of the elite slot and into I think they're in a slightly separate heavy support slot. I may need to double check, but if those that are listening, then you could let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. But I think that they've got their own separate detachment. And I also quite like the fact that with Outrider, I don't know if can't quite remember if it's the jet bikes as well, but I know that definitely the Outriders, they have their own separate scout detachment that you can put them in, which is very thematic, and I really, really quite like that. It seems like they're taking more of a thematic approach with how you build your armies as well, with the fact that you have to have a centurion, and then that will then grant you unlocks, and you can. It kind of seems not quite like a skill tree per se, but it seems like you have a centurion, and then from there you can then pick. Okay, I've got this pool of units I can pick from. If you have like another centurion, you can then sort of add even more, which I quite like it. Again, it feeds into that more thematic approach that they are going for, where you have like smaller companies that specialize in certain things. Where you have like an outrider unit, you've got a group, you then have like a dreadnought heavy group, you then have a tactical support squad, or like a tactical with like veterans and support squads in another group. And I think that's really really cool. Kind of almost like shows off or tries to replicate like different companies of specialized units and such, that you kind of bring together into one force, and then you just throw them at the table at your enemy. Um, Slight downside to that is that it may seem a little bit more complicated, because I know that with the second edition, with having a Praetor, that unlocks a quite a few really nice abilities. Once your army was above 1,000 points, and you could just take, it was quite clearly laid out of how many slots you could take, and that was it. And then you had your different rights of war, which had your bonuses, but also your limitations. And I didn't quite often agreed with the limitations. I think that some of them were quite punishing, but it did make it as thematic as they could. But it seems like that with this, from what we've seen so far, they just seem that they're leaning more into this thematic side with creating your army and the different units you can take. I know that one thing with playing a lot of Night Lords is that one Right of War that I absolutely loved and slightly hated at the same time was the Terror Assault. It was fantastic. You can have loads of 7-drop pods, the Terror Squads, and Night Raptors. They can be taken as troops, which was brilliant, but you can only have one heavy support choice, which sucked massively. And speaking of sort of troops and that sort of thing, the keyword line is changed as well now. So it seems like what we've read so far, what we've seen so far, is that most, if not all, units can score objectives or have some kind of line keyword with them. But there are certain units that have like line 2 or line 3 that give you more points for taking those units. So it seems like that the standard tactical squad is going to have, let's say, like line 3, and so if you use them on an objective, that's going to sort of multiply and give you even more victory points, more points than if you just part a Rhino on there or a Terminator squad. It really kind of opens it up. Because one thing that I found with second edition is that there were hardly any units with the line keyword, and the ones that did, my opponent really aimed for them to try and wipe them out, and then just bulldoze across the way. Fighting the Mechanicum it wasn't a fun time. It was fun, but because my opponent is fantastic, but yeah, they're deadly. They are very deadly. I'd like to see how they fare in third edition, but again, we're just gonna have to wait for when the rules come out, really. So the fact that there's more options and more opportunities for you to score points is brilliant. I really really like that, because that was one limitation with the second edition that I really didn't really like very much at all. So another positive that I have came across is that the fact that Games Workshop have said when they're going to release the Liber Astartes books, that I'm drawing a blank now. I think it's the Mechanicum, the Talons of the Emperor, the Demons of the Runestorm, the Solar Auxilia, and the other sort of non-Space Marine factions are going to receive free PDF downloads of their rules, and you can use them until the new books come out, which I think is a huge positive change with the Horus Heresy team to do that, because it means that all the rules for whatever faction that you play with the Horus Heresy are there right at the gate when the game is launched. And the fact that they're doing free PDFs is, I think, a very, very good sign. It means that I mean, perhaps they will eventually move into more of that sort of space. I do kind of doubt it because, well, as we know, Games Workshop is quite the greedy company. But the fact that they were not only willing to consider free PDFs, but the fact that they're actually doing it is huge, and I support that. That's fantastic. Didn't really expect that. I've got to be honest. But there's one theory around that is that the fact that they're doing free PDFs means that they're working on the the proper rule books for them to be released at a later date, which may indicate that they're going to be introducing some new models to those ranges. Perhaps even not as well as new models. Is that they're going to then move a lot of the units from resin into plastic as well. So it's a really cool sign. It's very promising, the fact that they're doing that, really. And speaking of models as well, and some more positives, the Mark II Marines look incredible, and guarantee they're going to be much bigger than the first Mark II Marines that were released very, very long time ago. I don't want to kind of dwell on how old they are. I mean, I've got 40 of them for my salamanders from way back in the day, and put them up against like the new Mark fours. Sorry, not Mark fours. Mark sixes, the Corvus pattern. They're quite stout. They're quite short. So I imagine that the new Mark IIs will have a slight scale creep with that, which is, I mean, is to be expected, really. Will I get some of them? Of course, want to get them and see how the kits go together, and yeah, just kind of like just see and experience and just kind of have them. Will I have them in my salamanders alongside my original Mark IIs? Probably not. I might have them as Thousand Suns veterans instead and run them that way. But other things as well, like new model releases, the fact that they're doing the Fellblade, I believe it is, the Fellblade, from resin into plastic is huge. It's fantastic. It's such an awesome looking model, and I had never even thought about getting one because of the fact that it's in resin, and resin from Forge World has been notorious for being a little bit crap. Just a little bit crap. Not always, but I do remember one time years ago I was painting up a load of units of Sons of Horus for a friend of mine, and he gave me a Fire Raptor, and he said, I've tried to fix the side hole of the Fire Raptor and it snapped. And I was like, okay, and he said that when it arrived, it was like a banana shape. It was completely bowed. And I spent so long trying to fix it, so having it in like hot water to try and bend it back into place, using green stuff, using a load of super glue. And that gave me such a nightmare that I was put off by buying any more resin kits from Forge World. I was like, no, that was too much. That was way too much. Pain and effort to try and fix something that should have been, in my opinion, probably easily avoidable. But you just don't know these things. But the fact that they are releasing these super heavy tanks in plastic is fantastic. Love it. Love to see it. Can't wait for them to come out. The Quads Accelerator Auto platform as well looks superb. I love defensive terrain stuff that you can use. I used to love the old Cities of Death from can't remember what edition it was. It might be like 6th, 7th edition of 40k, and just having loads of terrain, loads of different types of terrain, with like the Aegis defense line and the little battery cannons you can have with that. That was beautiful. I love that. So to have more of that sort of thing for the Horus Heresy, I welcome it. I love that kind of stuff. Even if you don't use it in your list, you can just have it as terrain, and it just makes your board look so much more interesting than just having horrible L-shaped buildings, because they suck. Absolutely. They just have no imagination with that. So to have like more interesting terrain is brilliant. And speaking of like new releases and models and things, a downside that is personal to me. A lot of people have said that they love this kit, so it's a bit of a hot topic, hot take even. That the Saturnine Terminators. The Saturnine Terminators should have stayed as a design piece and just left there. I think they look absolutely ridiculous in model form. They remind me of the old sculpts of Orc Boys, where they have their heads like squarely in the middle of their chest, and they look sort of really quite dumpy and derpy. It was, of course, with the massive shoulder pads as well, they look ridiculous. I mean, it was the style at the time, back in the 80s, sort of thing. I wasn't around then, but you can see by the design it is very clearly dated. And then they made an even bigger version, and had it as a Saturnine Dreadnought, which again it doesn't look as bad. I'll give it that. It doesn't look as bad as the normal Saturnine Terminators. Saturnine Dreadnought makes a little bit more sense with how it's proportioned, with the head being in the center, or near the center of the chest, because like with the other dreadnoughts with like the Leviathan, the Contemptor, and the other one that its name always escapes me, but the old Boxnaut, the fact that their heads are in the center of the body makes design sense. But the Terminators look, they look so stupid. They look so stupid. I don't like them at all. I think they suck. Gotta be honest. I'm sure that's going to spark someone off in the comments, but it's my opinion at the end of the day. But yeah, I think they're pretty crap looking. Gotta be honest. But not only that, it's the size of them as well. Like I saw a clip of the Saturnine Terminators. I think it was the new Praetor, and he was stood next to Vulcan, and obviously Vulcan, he's a big boy. He is a big, beefy, huggable boy. And this Saturnine Terminator is, silhouette-wise, pretty much the same size as him. So, like, you can have Praetorians the size of Primarchs. That's... No. That's that scale creep that's just gone a little bit out of hand. I mean, I understand it lore-wise with, for example, like Alpharis and Aegon, because they're the shortest Primarchs, but they were obviously, like, with Alpharis's or Omegan's model, they made him bigger, so then, it's more of a centerpiece model. You can see him on the table a little bit easier. But now we're going to have these massive, like, oversized, dumpy-looking Saturnine Terminators, and they're like Praetor that are going to be kind of rivaling Primarch size. I don't know. It's going to make everything else look a lot smaller, and I get it. I get it that they are these massive, like, really uber duper heavily armored Terminators that are, Terminators are already heavily armored Space Marines. So they kind of remind me of the Centurions from 40k, but they look better. They do look better, in my opinion, than the Saturnines. So it just, I don't know. I think that maybe that they should have picked a different unit to focus on. Maybe like some more Legion specific units to sort of use their time on, rather than bringing back this ancient city design from way back when in the early days of Games Workshop. So yeah, I think that they should have just left that Terminator design where it was back in the 80s. It looks terrible, in my opinion. But you can always let me know that if you disagree with my take, but that's where I stand. And will I be getting any of them? No. No, definitely not. I'll probably end up trying to get a hold of the box and splitting it, if I can, with a friend and getting the Mark IIs, or just probably look on eBay, maybe, for people that tend to buy the box sets and then sort of split the units off and sell them individually, which tends to work out a little bit cheaper than what Games Workshop would have sold them for separately in however many months' time. So yeah, I'll probably do that instead. And speaking of Games Workshop and time-wise, we were given a bit of a roadmap, which I got quite excited for. I thought it was going to be like a roadmap to show what units are coming out and when. But it was, after I kind of looked into it a little bit more, it looks like it's more of a roadmap for the to do with the PDFs of the groups and the factions that aren't going to get rulebooks straight away, and sort of when their rulebooks are going to be coming out. So it's not quite what I was expecting, but at least it's something. At least, to have a roadmap to say, hey, look, this is kind of coming up around the corner. I know that it's not model related; it's more rulebook related, but still, it's something, and I quite like this. It gives me a little bit of hope, with the sort of rulebook roadmap, and with the fact that they are having like these like free PDFs that you can use in the meantime, is quite promising. I really quite like that. So props to Games Workshop, or at least like for the specialist design studio for doing that. So well done to them. So I know I haven't really dived into much of the specifics with the rules that have been leaked. I mean, they're like far many better, far many. Oh my god, far more and better channels out there that have been covering it. So they are, if you're kind of keeping up to date with like the leaks and all the information that Games Workshop has been dishing out there, I'm sure that you're already aware of these channels. But I just wanted to kind of give my overall thoughts and opinions on the new edition that's coming out. And overall, I am very, very excited. The fact that there's new editions coming out. There's going to be, I mean, one downside is that it's a bunch of new rules that you got to sort of relearn and try and mentally block out the previous edition as best you can, because it sounds like it's going to be similar but not quite. And of course, there's always going to be times where you think of a rule, or like a rule's coming up and you go, oh yeah, it's going to be like this, and then you realize no, that was the last edition's rules. The new edition is different. But the fact that there's going to be a new edition and there's going to be kind of lots more hype and love injected into it, and we got lots of really cool model releases that are coming out. Not just the ones I mentioned, but also the Mark III, Mark II, Mark III? Yeah, Mark III breaches, and the Mark II Assault Squad is finally coming out. And no doubt that by the time that we've got our hands on them and we've painted them up and had a few games, it won't be long until the other units have been converted into plastic, like with the Recon Squad, the Seeker Squads. I imagine that with the Seekers, they'll probably end up just doing a sort of different weapons pack for them, rather than like a whole new sort of like sprue, because I really quite like the old resin Recon sort of bolters with the added scopes on top, and it looked really, really funky. And with the Fellblade being released as well, we can obviously look forward to the Fellglaive coming out and all its other tasty, massive, chunky variants that are going to be coming out in plastic. I'm hoping as well, I'm kind of just waiting on the day, and hopefully it's not too far away when they release the flyers in plastic as well, because I've had my eye on the Storm Eagle. Is it the Storm Eagle? The carrier one. Yeah, Storm Eagle. For ages, and I've been keeping my eye out online to see if I can try and bag a good bargain of a second-hand Storm Eagle, but it just hasn't surfaced yet. Just because I'm very put off by the resin kits after the whole thing with trying to build and repair that fire raptor for a friend of mine. So yeah, lots of exciting things to look forward to with this new edition. And again, like whether you sort of love the rules, hate the rules, the fact that it can play, or you will end up getting like a very different outcome when you start playing it, as opposed to reading the rules, is something that you gotta bear in mind, really. So just have a couple of test games of it, see if you like it. And of course, if you don't like it, there's always second edition, there's always first edition. You can always house rule some of the rules as well, just to make it a little bit more fun for yourselves with casual play. But of course, if you're looking forward to it, then you wouldn't have any of those problems really. You're just going to look forward to it, play the game, and have a lot of fun, which is what I'm going to be doing as well. So I've got my Night Lords. They're a good standing. Currently working on my Salamanders, getting them up to a decent level because they've been neglected for many years. And of course, as I mentioned, I'm starting up a Thousand Suns. So I'm hoping by the time I finish up my Salamanders, my Thousand Suns shouldn't be too far behind, but been a bit delayed with painting lately because of all this hot weather and stuff. I'm just feeling very drained. So I'm hoping soon they'll be finished, and we'll get some battle reports done. Which while there hasn't been many lately, just because of just other things going on in life, as it tends to happen, really. So yeah, and just looking on different hobbies rather than just sat painting in a hot, sweaty room and having the paint dry within seconds before I've got a good finish. But anyway, I'm kind of waffling on a little bit. I know this has been a little bit rambly, a little bit maybe all over the place, but it's just kind of off the cuff, just thoughts and opinions on third edition. So overall, I'm excited. I'm just kind of waiting for when the rulebooks come out, and then I can have a few little test games with my good old buddy of mine, and then we can start doing some battle reports with the new edition. So look out for that whenever that comes out. It's probably like maybe in a month or so, because it's releasing soonish. But then we've got to have a couple of games set up as well beforehand, just to get the flow going. But of course, with doing the battle reports for the new edition, so like soon after it's released, there's going to be some bits that we're going to end up either forgetting or misreading or whatever. So we're all learning at the same time as well. Everyone's on the same sort of playing field in terms of skill and such, which is quite fun. It's quite interesting. So I'm gonna round it off there, and just leave all your thoughts and comments down below in the obviously comment section. And if you made it this far, thank you ever so much. And I'll try and get a painting video done for the weekend. I am away, going for a long weekend, as it's my birthday next week. So if I can get it out, fantastic. If not, then never mind, and I'll just put a poll up for you guys to vote on what Legion you want me to see me paint for Horus Heresy. So stay safe, stay beautiful, stay hydrated, and we'll see you all next time.